Now, tributes continue to trickle in for the departed Queen Elizabeth II. The body of Her Majesty will lie in state for the next 4 days. The UK's longest-serving monarch died on Thursday last week, aged 96. Yesterday, Charles III was proclaimed king at a ceremony that took place in London. Now, let's bring in our correspondent, Olly Barratt, who's going to be taking us through the procession of the Queen's coffin. A very good morning to you, Olly Barratt. Maybe just give us a sense exactly that in terms of that procession and really the laying in state of the late Queen and the next 4 days. What is that going to be looking like?
Yeah, actually, the lying in state happens in London. That's a little bit later in the week. What is happening today is that the Queen's body, as you say, is being moved from Balmoral, where she died and when she spent so much time at that estate in Scotland, and it will move through the streets of Scotland towards the city of Edinburgh. That's around 160, 170 miles or so. And that hearse, as it moves through those streets, will go past many locations that were special to the Queen in some way. She'll go over, for example, a King George bridge named after her father, and the roads will be lined with well-wishers who want to see the coffin, see the hearse and pay tribute in some way, and it will move quite slowly as a result. When it gets to Edinburgh, the coffin and the Queen's body will lie in rest there. There will be a special service in Edinburgh on Monday. The King will attend that along with the British Prime Minister, the new British Prime Minister Liz Truss. Then on Tuesday, the Queen's body will make its way down to London, and it's when it gets to London that it will lie in state in Westminster for the 4 days leading up to the funeral, which was confirmed yesterday is taking place on September the 19th. And it will be the 4 days, including the morning of the 19th, that the Queen will lie in state in Westminster, and that will allow people in London to go and see the Queen if they want to do so, and officials are expecting that actually millions of people will queue up to attempt to do that.
I'm sure definitely millions of people, Olly. Can you give us a sense of what the funeral, when it eventually does take place, is set to look like? You know, the kind of protocol that will be followed on the day.
It's going to be a huge enterprise, nothing that this country has seen probably since the state funeral of Winston Churchill, although, of course, the funeral of Princess Diana was a very large affair as well in a different way. But this will be a huge event for authorities in London from a political point of view, but also from a logistical point of view. So on the political side, it's who exactly gets invited. World leaders absolutely will be there in great numbers. Of course, we don't yet know whether Cyril Ramaphosa will be among them, but he will certainly be invited, one would think. But you also have to bear in mind that the Queen met dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of dignitaries over the course of her 70 years on the throne. So not everyone that she came across on her travels and spent time with will be able to be there. There's only so much room inside Westminster Abbey. It is expected that, again, millions of people could be on the streets of London on that day, on September the 19th. It'll be a public holiday here in the UK, and authorities are getting ready as quickly as they can to be able to police that amount of people. There have been some concerns, dating back years actually, that London for the first time could effectively become full of people, and that things like the transport network will really struggle to keep up just with the numbers of people out on the streets wanting to be there on the day. Everyone knows that it's going to be watched internationally. It'll be streamed and beamed live all around the world, but just logistically on the streets of London, it's going to be quite the day with the numbers of people that we expect to be there.
One can only imagine the logistical nightmare that is going to be coming over the next few days, Olly, but all in just to pay tribute to the Queen. Speaking of paying tribute to the Queen and those who will be in attendance, there have been reports over the last day or so that before the passing of the Queen, Meghan Markle, the wife of Prince Harry, was prevented from being around the close family in those last few moments. Can you maybe give us details around that, and really those who you anticipate or those you've engaged your fellow colleagues with in terms of taking the stage and paying tribute at the funeral?
I've seen those reports. I haven't seen those reports from a credible source. I don't think there's any suggestion that any suggestion from royal sources at this point that she was asked not to be there or prevented from being there in some way. I think Harry will have taken that decision himself. That may well be. It may well be that is contradicted in the coming days from royal sources, but I've not seen that coming from any sources at the palace or close to any members of the royal family. Yesterday we did see her, and that would lead you to believe that she's not being prevented from taking part in any of these proceedings in any way. We saw her here at Windsor. There were lots of crowds gathered at the castle behind me, laying flowers, laying tributes, and then Harry, Meghan, William and Kate came out of the grounds of Windsor Castle together, and huge cheers went up at that point. They walked around together and in their couples for 40 minutes or so, greeting the crowds, and then drove off together as well, driven by William. We're told that William suggested the idea and that Harry took him up on it. So clearly there is an olive branch of sorts between the two. One of the things that we don't know, of course, about Harry and Meghan, who are staying in Windsor, where I am as we speak, we don't know how long they will stay here, or whether indeed they'll go home and then come back, or whether Meghan might go home and then come back to the UK for the funeral, because of course their two young children we think are not in the country at the moment. So it may well be that one or both of them flies back to the States and then back to the UK for the funeral on Monday. We just don't know that yet. We would expect both of them very much to be there, but of course they're not senior royals anymore, not working royals anymore, out of their own choice, and so their place in the funeral will be rather different from William's, for example, simply because of that status.
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarity, Olly Barratt, our UK correspondent. Of course, we'll continue to engage you over the coming days just because of what we're seeing happen in the UK and as people continue to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II.